In this video, I'm going to show you how to draw the basic shapes of squares and the three-dimensional cubes. So make sure that you're using the brush tool and that you have your settings set to a small brush with a soft edge on low opacity, and you're using the pressure sensitivity for opacity and brush size. You might want to add in just a little bit of smoothing if your hands are a little bit shaky, but try not to go too far because you do want to build hand-eye coordination and you want to move kind of quick. So of creating squares, what you really want to do is you want to start making straight lines first. So of your straight lines, try not to do this little sketchy line. It's actually better if you try to ghost practice where the line is going to be and then commit and do it in like one stroke. That actually comes out looking a lot smoother. Don't just do it all in one stroke. Sometimes that works really nicely, but do a couple of practice swings to be able to make your lines. And that will make a nice clean line. And if you mess up on any, feel free to use the eraser to erase out anything. Now, when you are creating straight lines, something else that's smart to do is to move from your elbow instead of your wrist. Your wrist naturally has an arc to it, whereas your elbow gives a larger range of motion. And you can see I can create a much straighter line, creating it like that. And don't feel afraid to go past your edges, because you can always go through and erase out any overhang of things and make it look nice and clean. Now, when you're creating a square, something that's smart to keep in mind is the concept of parallels. When you're setting out your first line, what you really want is you want your second line to be parallel to that original line. And I just copied and pasted so you can see how it starts to look, but I want you to build the hand-eye coordination of drawing it yourself. So one side is parallel to the other, and I'm going to use another color so it's easier to like understand. But when I create my second side, we can see that I want to keep that side parallel to the other. The more parallel I keep those, the more square-like it becomes. And you don't have to keep a bunch of different colors, but I drew it in two colors so it's easier to kind of see. You can keep your colors to just one color. So for this first one, try creating as many squares as you possibly can. It's okay if you go over the edge just a little bit, but try to keep your angles nice and clean. Once you start getting really comfortable with these, it'll be that much easier to create any sort of rhombus or parallelogram or any other shape that you want to make. I'm going to speed up the video here while you guys fill up half this page full of two-dimensional squares. And then I'll slow it back down once we get to the halfway mark and we start, and I'll show you how to create three-dimensional cubes. So there you go. It's a bunch of two-dimensional squares. Now, moving on to the three-dimensional cube. Again, what you want to start off with is a square. And so I'm creating just one square. And then remember what I said about parallels. Now, one side of a cube parallels the other side of the cube. So I just kind of like copied and moved this, and then I moved moving back to just then connect each of the corners. Now, and there we have a cube from one angle. Part of when you're drawing this, what you want to think about is what things are parallel to each other. So now I'm going to switch around colors a little bit. So of my front cube, I have these like two side angles, and then I'm going to change my color to a color for my parallel tops. So when I move to drawing my back cube, what I'm actually going to do is you can draw the back cube and then connect the lateral parts, or you can move the lateral parts and go back to the back cube. I think I'm going to switch and do the laterals because I find that that's easy to find how the back one connects. But notice as I draw it going back and I'm giving it depth, I'm going to try to keep each line that I create parallel to the other lateral line. That way, it won't end up getting any bigger in the back. And I'll show you how it looks a little bit silly. So I created a quick duplicate. I'm gonna erase some of these lines, and I'm gonna make them at different angles. So I'm gonna make this one a little bit thinner that way, this one wide, this one up again. And then now when I create the backs of this, again, it's going to be easier to keep in mind what's parallel to what. So these vertical ones are parallel. And I can keep it kind of parallel here, but you can see because I made my lines all crooked, it's going to naturally want to warp. And that could be good if you're making a warped shape, but not good if you want to make a very clear, obvious shape. And then I'm going to switch over to red, and I'm going to keep my top parts parallel in the back. My tops and bottoms, my horizontal ones. But again, my back might get kind of warped if I'm not being careful and conscious about what angle and how I'm keeping those parallel. So you don't have to change your colors all the time. I just did that so it's easier for me to see. And you don't always have to start out with a square. I am going to, I can draw at like this slight parallelogram to give it an angle. And then I'm just thinking about that same sort of thing. How do my sides go back? And how are those all parallel to each other? And then how is my top part parallel? Don't forget that back part. Here we go. And you can do all sorts of thicknesses. So try out a variety of different cubes. You can create some rectangular ones that can be super, super deep, kind of like, I don't know why I'm thinking of a kitty litter box, but maybe you're drawing a kitty litter box. There we go. I'm going to darken up the front side, or I could have erased the back side a little bit to make it a little bit lighter. I think I might do that. There we go. Now you can see I made a really deep one, or I can make or I can even try out some paralleled, kind of like strange things. So I made a kind of rhombus, and I have that go back. Remember to keep your sides parallel to whatever side they came from, or that it's growing out from. And so there we have some different kinds of cubes. So I'm going to speed up the video here. I want you to fill out the other right side with a variety of different cubes. And there we go. So now we have a page of 2-dimensional squares and 3-dimensional cubes. Remember that the goal is to get the general shape down and get the sense of volume of where things are. Unless you're actually trying to make something that is a cube, like a cardboard box.